history. Let's talk about them hills. Let's talk about the gold might be waiting for me there. Let's talk about the dog who lives in Appalachian hills. Let's talk about the gold might be waiting for me there.
Have everybody's attention, please. I'd like to introduce Miss Cassie to the podcast. Y'all gather around now.
All right, y'all. So tell me about Fix Buncombe. Fix Buncombe is sort of morphed from a couple of other things that have happened. We started a project a couple of years ago called WNC Freedom. And we had monthly meetings and we talked about what's going on in Buncombe County. That's where we're mostly concerned. And then COVID hit and things got really quiet. And then several of us had gotten together and we said, we need to resurrect the WNC Freedom because, we'd stopped going to meetings because you couldn't go to meetings. And then we started talking about what did we really need to do in Buncombe. Buncombe is about 300,000 people. And Asheville is really blue, very liberal, whereas the outer area is very conservative. And we kept saying in this meeting, we've got to fix Buncombe. We've got to fix Buncombe. We need to come up with something so we can fix Buncombe. And so after the meeting was over, I'm driving home and I'm going, could it be that simple? Could it be that we just need to call it Fix Buncombe? So I called Abbi and I said, can we find out if there's a website available, if there's social media sites available on something as easy as Fix Buncombe? What has happened over the course of years, and it's been 10 or 15 years, believe it or not, there used to be more conservatives on the school board, more conservatives on the county commissioners. And over the course of 15, 20 years, it converted to there is not a single conservative anywhere. Not on the school boards, there's no conservatives. Not on the county commissioners, there's none. But one of the things that they did back in 2018 was they redistricted. And when they did, they're screaming and yelling about gerrymandering, and you're familiar with gerrymandering. Well, the way that the area was designated, Asheville was its own little community, and then the areas around were very red. So what they did in 2018 was they took this little area here and made sprockets. And so the Democrats were able to infiltrate all of the territories. So instead of having a red ring around blue, you now had a red ring with sprockets, blue sprockets in it. So it actually converted all of the territory to blue. And that's how they managed over the course of a couple of cycles. They managed to convert everything to blue, to Democrat, very liberal Democrat. So in 2023, I think it was 2023, we redistricted and we went back to the old districts where Asheville was one and then the other territory were two other. So this year in 2026, we actually, if you go through, there's 80 precincts in Buncombe County, and there are about 20 or 30 that are actually more red than blue. So we actually have the ability to get some seats back. So right now we're looking for good candidates. And if there's anything that you can do to help, to ask people to run for school board, if you're, I don't even want to say conservative, if you're common sense, we have two or three school board positions that are open. We have at least one or two county commissioner positions that are open. And we need people to stand up and run. And like I said, common sense will beat out this progressiveness all over the place. So getting back and going back a little bit, so we created this Fix Buncombe. So for the 2024 campaign, what we did was we talked to candidates. We talked to local candidates, we talked to state candidates, we talked to a couple people that were federal level candidates. And it's not necessarily that I'm looking for the people who have common sense, the people who want to make a difference. Before we started this podcast, we talked about schools. Well, let's talk about schools for a while if you would like to do that. In 2008, this has become my new hot button, North Carolina passed a law. It's not a statute. It's not an executive order. It is a law that you must teach cursive in the schools. They're not doing it.
You should have to teach cursive in schools.
You would think, considering our founding documents are in cursive, you would think. I taught a couple of courses at Abbi Tech on marketing, and I would write on the board in cursive, and the kids would look at me going, "What does that say?" And I looked at them and go, "Seriously?" And they're like, we don't know cursive. But it is a law. It is a law. So I'm going to go to the school board and say, "Hey, how are we doing on that cursive writing stuff?" And you are required, it's also part of the same law, you are required to have memorized your multiplication tables. Here's the fun part. If these students do not know how to do cursive and do not know how to do their multiplication tables, they're not supposed to be able to go from 5th grade to 6th grade.
It was that way when I was a kid.
I was the last class to have cursive taught at my school, but we only got the letter G, and it came back from Christmas, and they stopped teaching it.
I don't understand that. I mean, I pulled my kids out of public school and decided to homeschool because I was seeing things that I didn't like going on in the education system. And just from my kid, not me being political, just my children going to school. And when I was seeing things like them wanting information on my daughter's medical history or Common Core, math that made absolutely no sense, them not knowing how to write in cursive. My oldest came home and she had some really serious ideas about the last election with Obama. And she didn't even understand his policies. But yet she believed that if you didn't vote for Obama, you were racist. She truly believed this. And I told my husband, I was like, I can't do this. Our kids need to come home and I'll homeschool them. I can't do this.
That's the second part of my issue on these schools. So in 2023, 2023, because I've been doing this for 3 years. In 2023, I went to a school board meeting. I don't have children, but I have friends who have children, and I'm concerned. I have one friend who we were doing a project, and she had to write an envelope. And I handed her the envelope, and I handed her the list, and I said, "Write the envelopes for me while we stuff the envelopes." I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I went, that's it. So I go to this school board meeting, and it was either the September or the October school board meeting. And the grades statewide had come out for the testings. And so I went, oh, this is going to be interesting. So the superintendent gets up and he goes, "Grades are improving. This is really great." And everybody went, and that was the end of it. I went, "Don't you do a presentation? Don't you show how the grades improved?" So I went home and I went, that's not right. So I went on to the North Carolina Board of Education and I pulled up the grades. And there are 2,700 schools in North Carolina. And I was able to get down to the Asheville and the Buncombe school system. And I started looking at the grades. They're terrible. They're terrible. So I did an analysis, and the next month I went back to the school board and I said, how do you say that these grades have improved? Well, they have improved. Technically, he's right. Technically, they went from 54 to 55. Last time I checked, that's a failing grade. Okay? Well, buried in this report is the following. When I went to school, an A was anything from a 90 to 100. A B was 80 to 100, and a C was 70 to 100, 70 to 80. So in tiny type, in a tiny little on page 950, I'm exaggerating, but you get they've changed the grades. An 85 to a 100 is an A. A 75 to an 85 is a B. The 65 to 75 is a C.
My kid's back there shocked, y'all.
Okay? So the next year, I went back. Again, they come out in September, these grades. What they do is they take the test in June or May or June, and the grades come out in September for the new school year. Well, they're the same. And here's what's even more interesting, because I did it by school. And what they did at that point was they'd give a letter grade of how the school did. And then my favorite new column was did not meet expectations, met expectations, or exceeded expectations. So every school got, here's a grade, and did you meet, not meet, or exceed the expectations? Schools got D's, and it said exceeded expectation.
Oh, so I have a friend who, and I'm not going to call her out, but her husband is, I think, a principal at a school or coach at a school. She's very involved in the school. And we were chatting, and she said that they're not even teaching civics anymore.
No, they're not. They're not. But that's clearly they're not, because you would not have Mondavi. You wouldn't have socialism. It would not even be a conversation, because they don't work. In theory, they might be interesting, but they don't work in reality. So anyway, so let's go back. So now just this year, the new scores have come out. Well, they have now changed the rating yet again so that it's difficult to do apples to apples. They now do proficiencies. And are the kids proficient in reading? Are the kids proficient in math? And the answer still is 50%. Now, there are some schools in Buncombe County that do very well, that get 80s, 90s. But there's a whole boatload of them that are getting 40s and 50s, and there were even some 30s. I don't want kids being taught in a school that the grades are 30s.
I don't think any North Carolinian does. That is the reason I pulled my children out and homeschooled them, because my child, who was learning normal math and excelling, started making D's and F's when they started teaching Common Core, a math that doesn't make sense and doesn't have any real life usage. So immediately I was like, no, this doesn't work, And so I pulled my child out. Unfortunately, not everybody is capable of doing that.
This actually got me even more interested. So I started looking, because the teachers all want raises. I can't blame them. I understand that concept. But I get raises based on performance. And so therefore, there's something not right here. So what I did this past time was I looked at national levels. And the first thing I needed to look at was cost of living. All right? Because when you look at salaries of these teachers, we rate in the 40s. The issue is that there are about 10 or 15 states that there's only like a couple $100 difference. So I looked at Tennessee, I looked at South Carolina, and I looked at North Carolina. The cost of living here, if the average across the United States is 100, we're in the 94 percentile. So that means our cost of living is pretty decent. It's not super expensive. Like in Connecticut, it's at 150. In New York, it's 180. So salaries are commensurate with what the standard of living is. So I looked at that. Then I looked at what these people get paid. An average for North Carolina is in the $53,000 to $58,000. But there's like 10 states that are in that same pile. So they're being paid, their cost of living is lower, and they're being paid about the same as a lot of the other people. So that's not the issue. The issue that I come back to is if our kids are not learning, where does the fault lie? Is it the superintendent? Is it the school board? Is it the Teachers Association? Is it because they get money from the federal government? And is it the Board of Education from the federal government, which is being, torn apart right now? They're going to get rid of that because the money really needs to go to the states. The other problem that we have is North Carolina gets a bulk of money from the federal government. They in turn give it to the counties. The counties can decide what to do with it. In the past, in the last few turnarounds, the counties have paid administrators. Are you familiar with Asheville and Buncombe County? We actually have two separate school systems. We have the Asheville school system and we have Buncombe County school system. So we have two superintendents, each making several $100,000.
Wow.
Okay. Then they all have teams, and then their teams have teams. And so you've paid for all of this before you get to the students, and you paid for all this before you get to the teachers.
So in your opinion, where does the fault lie?
Well, I think it lies at the board level and the superintendent level. And I wonder how much of it comes from what is mandated from the Federal Board of Education and the State Board of Education. Because there are certain things that they are required to do. There is no civics. Okay? Ask your daughter or ask some kid, how many senators are there in the United States? How many congressmen are there in the United States? How many senators are in North Carolina? How many congressmen are in North Carolina? They can't answer these questions. We have people that come out to vote that will only vote on election day for a president, and then the ballot remains blank. So my problem is 75% of the population comes out to vote for president. 50% comes out to vote at a midterm, and people do not vote the whole ballot.
I would say it's less than that in certain places in North Carolina. When I went to vote recently, it was within the last few months we voted, and I want to say it was like 10% or less of our city came out to vote for mayor.
Here's the other piece, okay? And we do this here in Buncombe County. We have an election for mayor in Weaverville on an off year. We should not have anything on an off year. People get focused on, I need to vote every 4 years for president, and the rest of it doesn't make any sense. Truly, the most important vote you could possibly make are for your city officials.
I agree with that.
Okay. In a primary, which is what we're going to have in March, 15% come out to vote.
That sounds about right. That sounds right to me. And I think that that's a huge problem. I also think that conservatives struggle trying to get people to come vote. I don't know if they are doing it intentionally. I don't know what's going on, but this last go round, especially looking at Mecklenburg County. Mecklenburg County has been in the news nonstop for the last couple of months, starting with Irina Zarutska.
Sure.
And you're telling me that these same people got elected again. Where were the Republicans? Where were the conservatives? Because the numbers of voters, they didn't improve. They stayed about the same. So you're telling me that all of this violence didn't convince you to get up and go vote?
That's something that we've been really trying to push with Fix Buncombe, is voting down the ballot and how important it is, and educating people. We have people that come to us all the time going, okay, what's a county commissioner? Why does that matter? What is that? And we have people that say, okay, why do I need to care about the school board? I don't have kids. Kate doesn't have kids. Kate cares about the school board. Why? And that's the thing that people ask. I don't have kids. I care about the school board. That's the huge thing that we've been trying to, I guess, not shove down people's throats, but shove down people's throats.
Yeah. It makes no sense to me that you care more about what's going on in Washington, D.C. And don't get me wrong, that impacts the whole country. But how do you believe that that impacts you any more than what's going on in your own backyard?
It's a problem, and it's a serious problem. And again, I happen to be conservative, but I have a lot of common sense. Okay, you want to swing over to talk about reparations for a little bit?
I've heard that is coming up quite often in discussions in Buncombe County.
Well, okay. So let's talk about the founding of the United States. And in fact, Abbi and I were just in Black Mountain over the weekend, and we saw a play that was done by high schoolers. It was called Reconstitution. It was a great play. It was adorable, and they did a good job. I was very curious to see how they were going to handle it. It was about kids in high school. They have an electrical outage for the kids, go back in time. One becomes Washington, one becomes Madison, one becomes Henry, and one becomes Jefferson, Madison, Washington, Ben Franklin. And they sort of awake from this electrical issue, and they're now these founding fathers, and they're talking to the rest of the kids in class, and the kids are just going, huh? So let's talk about reparations for a minute. Washington had slaves. That's all everybody ever remembers. Washington had slaves. Oh my gosh, terrible. How did we do this? The world's terrible. He wanted slavery to end, but knew he couldn't get that passed because you had a whole bunch of southern states that were joining this whole United States. So he gave in on this. So now you have to vote on the Constitution. Well, here's this little slippery thing that comes in. They now refer to Black people, the slaves, we're racist because we count them as 3/5 of a person. 3/5 of the person. The reason they did this were the people who lived in the South all had slaves. They wanted one vote, one person. And I'm sorry, but it's one vote, one male person. The Northerners knew that the Southerners outweighed them if you counted one for one vote. And at that time, it was common that the Black people did not know how to read. They did not know how to write. Okay. So it was agreed upon that a male Black slave would count as 3/5 of a person to even out the voting between the North and the South. And that's how you got the Constitution passed.
Well, it was a compromise.
It was a compromise. Okay. And the true feeling was that sometime in the next, our founding fathers were pretty smart, in the next period of time, whether it was 100 years or 50 years or whatever, they felt that that would be addressed. Now, when Washington died, he freed his slaves, it was in his will, gave them land and, I don't know, a mule or something. So paid reparations. That was normal. We did pay reparations. People got, when slavery was over, many of them got some land, many of them got a mule, whatever, a cow, whatever. They were paid. So let's swing now to 250 years, and California tries this concept of reparations, and Nashville decides to get into the reparations business. Do you know that in Buncombe County, less than 6% of the population is Black?
I also know that in Western North Carolina, we couldn't sustain the type of plantation life that existed in Eastern North Carolina. And so it's always been a little shocking to me that, knowing that my Western North Carolina ancestors, most of them were extremely poor, none of them owned slaves, that a place that they settled is now talking about giving out reparations, when I know for a fact that my ancestors from here did not own slaves.
Okay, let's talk about, since we're segueing real quickly, Vance. Okay, Vance had slaves. Do you know that he educated them?
I did not.
And yet we took the monument down. Instead of leaving the monument there and teaching people about people, let's just take it down. Okay, so now they start talking about reparations. They put together a committee and have $5 million to analyze. They come up with a list of 100 grievances, and they feel that all the 6% should get all this money. Like you said, this area was poor. We didn't have slaves here. I come from Connecticut. I had nothing to do with slavery. Do I have to pay for reparations? Better yet, my parents come from Norway. We didn't have slaves there. Do I still have to pay reparations? The good part about it is that Trump's Harmeet Dillon has said, hey guys, this is racist. So as of last week, they're getting rid of that whole commission. But again, I come back to, is the United States fabulous? We have issues. We try to fix them. We try to be good people with common sense and try to fix them. But paying people who had nothing to do with slavery, if you want to play this game, we have more Indians than we have Black people. We mistreated the Indians too. And I'm the first on the block going, well, if you have such a hang up and you feel that we are treating these people badly, are you going to give them donations out of your salary? Are you going to give up your land for these people? I'm okay on that, if that's what you want to do. But I had nothing to do with it.
Half of my family didn't own slaves. Half of my family did. Part of my family is Gullah Geechee. I'm related to the Waccamaw Sioux, the Cherokee. So are you saying that some of my family members who are half white and half Gullah Geechee, are they going to pay reparations to themselves? How do you make something like that work?
So I don't know. But paying $5 million to a reparations council to find 100 reasons why we should do reparations for 6% of the population, I don't know.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, there it is. Doesn't make sense to you. It doesn't make sense that we have kids in school that don't know civics, that don't understand socialism versus communism versus fascism. Trump's a fascist. Trump's a racist. Trump's a this. Trump's a that. They don't even know what the definitions are. Let's get some common sense going. So we have the ability to put in some good common sense people at the school board level, at the county commissioner level. Let's try and do that. Let's get people, like Abbi says, get them to vote the whole ballot. If you want to vote for one candidate over another, I'm cool on that. But know what these people stand for.
You brought up these different terms. Do you believe that there is socialism going on in Buncombe County? Like there are socialist candidates. There are people who want to push socialism in Buncombe County.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time.
Kim Rooney.
Yeah.
Running for city council. Absolutely.
That scares me.
It frightens me. Frightens me. We bought, Buncombe County or Asheville bought 5 electric school buses, paid $5 million for them. All right. Do you know where these school buses, not school buses, the general buses, do you know where they are right now? 5 of them, $5 million. Do you know where they are?
I'm scared to ask.
In a parking lot. You know why? None of them work. You know why? The company that built them is out of business. They can't get the parts to fix them. Oh, but wait a second. Let's talk about this. Do you know those 5 buses could only do 70 miles before they had to go back and be plugged in? And they're supposed to run around the city all day.
There's our tax money. Isn't that great? Wow. So you said, who was it that you said is?
Kim Rooney.
Kim Rooney.
She's on the city council right now. She's running for mayor. I think she's running for Esther Manheimer's seat, isn't she?
Yeah, she gonna try that again?
Yeah.
Wow. And so is she openly like, I'm a socialist, or?
I think it was earlier this year. First of all, she wears a mask 5 years after the pandemic's over, so that tells you a lot about her. They do a pledge at a moment of silence every time before their city council meetings. She purposely turns her back to the flag every time. She'll stand, but she turns her back to the flag every time that they do the pledge or they have the color guard or anything like that. Yeah. Yeah. And she refused to sign the oath of office. She refused to sign it. She has not signed, yet she is still serving her term. She served 2 terms now.
You're not allowed to. If you don't sign that pledge, the oath, you're not allowed to. It's a law. It's one of those laws again.
But the laws only matter when it's our side that's not following them.
That's so funny. Somebody said that in here earlier to me. Yeah, I feel like that's accurate. I feel like that's part of the problem, is that it only matters if it's a conservative. It doesn't matter if it's a Democrat. If it's a Democrat, you're supposed to let it go.
Yeah, look the other way.
But here's the other thing. Let's take this back another step, okay? Down south, they've had Democrats. You've been Democrats all their lives. They've been Democrats. But they were common sense Democrats. There was a time in my lifetime where I'd have a Democrat and a Republican and I couldn't tell the difference. Not anymore. Not even close.
I tell people that all the time. When I very first started, I was extremely non-political. I wouldn't talk about politics at all. I wouldn't comment on it, nothing. And then Helene happened. And then I got mad because this is home. Whether I live here or not, I'm a hillbilly. Once a hillbilly, always a hillbilly.
But the hillbillies, even before the storm was over, there are stories that we've heard all along the way. Honey, I'm taking my chainsaw. I'm headed out. Somebody's going to need a chainsaw. Honey, I'm bringing the tractor. Somebody's going to need a tractor. And that is what made me so proud of being down here. People would come out of the woodwork to help each other. Abbi and I, within a day or two, we're like, what do we do? So we went to the Trinity Church because we figured Trinity Church is the big church around here. If I ever see a peanut butter and jelly sandwich again, it will be too soon. I think we must be on the Guinness World Book because we made so many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But you know what the most horrifying thing was? Trinity Church was a first responders church. So they made sure that the first responders were taken care of so the first responders could then take care of everybody else. So our job was to put these care packages together. It was chips, cookies, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, water, whatever it was. And we put it in a bag. And these guys would come in and we'd give them the bag and say, when you get hungry, open the bag and eat the food. Do you know that they gave those bags away to people who were in worse shape than they were?
Makes my heart happy. I love Western North Carolina because we have a spirit that, to me, you don't see anywhere else. And I travel the state a lot. And so I'm absolutely proud of the way that the people who live here handled Western North Carolina. But when I was not here and watching it and reading the news and seeing what was going on and hearing things like there are bands of hillbillies chasing off FEMA, threatening people's lives, I was like, I know for a fact that's not true. Right. And so as I'm watching these things, I just got more and more and more angry. And then Charlie Kirk died. And then I got yelled at for wearing a Charlie Kirk t-shirt, and that just kind of changed me. You know what I mean? But up until that point, I was raised by a mama and papa who were old school Democrat. My daddy was a Democrat. My family from Eastern North Carolina was more Republican. You couldn't really tell the difference. You couldn't.
Because it was common sense.
Yeah. And now, out of nowhere, I know for a fact, my papa, you couldn't pay him to vote Democrat if he could see what was going on. If he could see the DEI, the transgender stuff, if he could hear reparations, if he knew that they were tearing down monuments to his ancestors, that would be it for him. I know it would be. And so it confuses me how especially older generations who remember far more than I do can continue to vote for something that goes against common sense.
Absolutely. It's when we were talking about Mondami, he hates Jewish people. He hates Jewish people. But the majority of the people that voted for him are Jewish.
And it's worse than that, because the majority of the people who voted for him are female. Well, the Muslim nation, females are second-class citizens. They can't vote. They're not allowed to leave their house without a chaperone. And yet these people voted for him. Because they don't know. They don't know. Okay? Ask people. What is Martin Luther King Jr.? He was a Republican. Ask him, who started the KKK? Democrats. People don't know. If you don't know, they say you're going to repeat history. Here you go.
And I swear that the more the Democrats move further left, now I'm starting to see really horrible people on the right start to pop up. And I'm like, this is what happens when you start telling people you are your skin color and you should be ashamed of your skin color. You're going to have people who pop up who want to revive hate groups and things like that. That's the natural procession there. And people seem like they're like, no, this always existed. I grew up in the 90s. We were partying together, drinking. We were dating each other, listening to each other's music. We didn't have this bullshit back then. And here we are in 2025. And all of a sudden, people are being racist again. And it's not just one way, it's both ways. To me, that's shocking.
You were sort of making jokes about death threats and stuff like that. Well, 3 years ago, I was in Raleigh for some meetings, okay? And they asked me to come to Wake County, to school board, stand outside a school board. This was when they were mandating that you had to wear a mask. There was no science behind it, but you had to wear a mask and you had to be 6 feet away. No science, but let's go with it. I had a sign, unmask your kids, okay? Kids need to see the face of their teachers. They need to see the face of their parents. They need to see the face because they make judgments on the facial cues. I wore a sign that said, unmask your children. The next day, my friend who I'd gone with says, you've made Facebook. I says, okay. She said, there's a picture of you with this sign standing outside of the school board, and it's by Antifa and says, die salty bitch.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to make light of the death threats.
But I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through that the past 2 or 3 months. All of a sudden, I have to carry a gun everywhere I go. To me, that's insanity. And don't get me wrong, I'm Southern. I have no problem carrying a gun. I grew up with guns. I have great aim. You know what I mean? But the thought that I need to do that, I shouldn't have to do. No one should have to do that for using their voice.
Well, when we were starting doing the podcast, we did one with Michelle Morrow, and she had posted it on Twitter. Do you remember this? They were saying some terrible stuff, and I'm not going to repeat it because it's fairly graphic, but Kay was about to get the police involved. I mean, it was about me, but people are terrible. If you don't agree with them, they'd rather you just die. It's horrible.
Now that I think is mainly on one side. When I came up after Helene and I was dropping off donations, I didn't go, "Oh, are you guys mostly conservative?"
Yeah.
I didn't
No,
care.
We didn't care. No.
Yeah.
No, we didn't care. No.
Yeah, people were out cutting trees off lawns for Democrats, and Democrats were out making care packages for Republicans. It didn't matter. I think that was something that actually, for once, kind of unified us.
You were getting ready to say something, and I feel like I cut you right off.
No, I don't remember. But we've talked for forever. But yeah, no, it's just. I want common sense restored. I want people to be nice to people. So swinging all the way back to Fix Buncombe. So we've created this thing called Fix Buncombe. We'll talk to anybody. We'll talk to people. You know, we went to the Faith and Freedom event. We just stick the microphone under the people's noses and go, "Why are you here? What brought you here? Or what do you believe?" And things of that nature. We'll talk to anybody who wants to talk, but we will debate you, and we will come armed with knowledge and history.
I think that's incredible. So your entire thing is about bringing common sense back into Buncombe County.
And fixing Buncombe.
That's actually I guess our slogan per se would be "Make common sense choices."
I love that. I think that's great. So you have the website, podcast,
Facebook.
And we do some YouTube stuff.
Yeah, we make videos and we put them on YouTube, but our podcast is there too, and it's on Spotify and iHeart.
And we have now at this point joined so many groups across North Carolina that we're hitting anywhere from 100 to 200,000 when we pop something. When she interviewed Dave Bullock, and if you get a chance, if you have not, he's the state auditor. He's just a doll,
He's
full
the
of
best.
common sense, very smart. You know, you think of an auditor as this like book snob and can't see outside of the book, and he's a normal guy, and he just wants to fix stuff like, you know, the election integrity and all of these other things that he's working on. But she did a podcast with him, and it hit 250,000. So we're trying. We're and Abby's right. You know, we do a sample ballot, and we tried to get the message out on just look at these people. And not all of the podcasts are an hour. Some of them are 10 minutes long. Some of them are an hour and a half long. It all depends. But we're trying to get people to just, if you hear and see and listen for a few minutes, you'll go, you know, and it'll make some sense to you. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. But we've got to fix Buncombe County. They were in the hole $50 million prior to COVID. They got COVID money that wiped out that issue. And within 2 or 3 years, they're now back to being 29 million in the hole. And now they're borrowing from here and borrowing from there and borrowing from, and the property taxes are going up and all these other taxes are going up. And I wouldn't have a terrible time if I believed they were spending the money right. I don't believe they're spending the money right.
My true passion is culture. That's what started me off. Is I love North Carolina culture. I love hillbillies. I love the Gullah Geechee. I love the Cherokee. I mean, North Carolina is just so amazing to me. And because I grew up in Canton, Asheville is special to me. I used to come here to go to the farmer's market when I was a kid, and you may not remember it, but there was this huge flea market next to the river, and they had everything. It was ginormous, and people from all these different counties would come to Asheville to do their shopping. Clogging got started, like the type of clogging that's famous here, like the teen clogging, that got started in Asheville. Yeah, I mean, Asheville used to be a hillbilly mecca, and I look at it today and I'm like, what happened?
Okay, so let me ask you a question. What do you know about the Buncombe 2043 plan?
Nothing.
Buckle up.
Uh-oh.
Buckle up. Off to the races she goes. Oh, like this is her other hot button issue.
So during COVID, they buried so much stuff in COVID. It's just astounding. During COVID, the Buncombe County commissioners hired a consulting group. Does that not tell you everything you want to know? Okay. Because what they did was they hired it out of Charlotte. Okay. Now look at this face. She knows everything that's coming down the pike on this. Okay.
Of course they did.
Of course they did. Well, this company, this consulting company, has done it across the United States. In San Francisco, in Cleveland, in all these nice little blue cities.
So places definitively that aren't Southern.
Yeah. Okay, so Buncombe 2043 plan is a long-term strategic plan. Being a marketer, love that. Everybody should know where you're going to spend your money over the next X amount of years, and they should know how they're going to do it. Well, you made mention of a couple of really nifty terms. DEI, woke. How about BIPOC? Have you ever heard of that word? BIPOC. Okay, Black, Indigenous, people of color. Now, have you ever heard of the expression smart city?
That I have heard, but I don't know what it is. Remember, I don't do a whole lot of politics. Like, I'm learning.
This is cultural. This is DEI woke. Okay, which I guess is politic, but yeah. So off to the races they went. And how is Asheville and Buncombe County going to look in 2043? That's what this was all about. There's a book that's written about smart cities, and it's socialism. Maybe it's even communism. You will own nothing and you will like it. Okay? You will live in what they call a smart city, also known as the 15-minute city. You don't need a car because your job and your schools and your stores are all within 15 minutes of walking.
What's their proposal here? They're going to use eminent domain to take people's property, or they're going to buy it? What?
Well, you see, they want all the farmland to build more low-income housing or income housing.
You're seeing that all across Western North Carolina right now, aren't you?
So here's the deal. They will build smart cities where you don't have to go anywhere. But here's the fun part. You will be monitored by your neighbors, be monitored by your banks, be monitored by the county. If you misbehave, they can turn off your electricity. They can turn off your bank account.
They have a plan that's written down.
County website.
It's on the website.
You can go look at it right
You
now.
go
and read
look
the
at
whole
it.
thing.
You will own nothing and you will like it.
Her jaw's on the floor.
Okay, all the land becomes city land. So all these farmers that have lived here, for 100 years, they will lose their land because it's for the better good.
That's straight up communist.
Kind of, sort of. Guess what happened? So they claim in this, go see this. This is a nifty looking document. This document, they claim 100,000 people in Buncombe County participated in it. I can't find one person that has participated in it. What they did was they went to the schools. They went to the elementary schools. They went to the junior highs during the height of COVID and said, what do you want to see out of your town in the next 50 years? Well, kids wrote, I want unicorns. I want everybody to play together. I want everybody to love one another. And I want everybody to live close together because I want love and community. They claim that, I can't find a single person that has ever said that they have participated It was all done during COVID. It was unanimously approved because here's this document by these consultants about how great this is going to be.
Wow.
Oh, and guess what then happens? Helene happens. Ask the county commissioners how many permits have been approved for rebuilding.
Go ahead and tell me. None, right? None?
People have money, but they can't rebuild on their property.
That makes me so mad. It literally makes my teeth itch. Don't get me wrong. I know that Buncombe County has a lot of transplants. But in my position, because of the things that I talk about, of course, the actual natives reach out to me. And hearing natives tell me about what a nightmare Asheville is becoming and how it's a place that their grandparents wouldn't recognize, their parents wouldn't recognize it, that they themselves don't recognize it, it literally turns my stomach. It's almost like population replacement by not issuing those permits, by not letting people who have lived here for generations continue to live here. It's like they want to get rid of us.
You're doing that in the Pacific Palisades. It burns down to a crisp. I had a friend back in the 60s who paid $100,000 for a piece of property in the Pacific Palisades. His property was at the top of the Pacific Palisades. And I'm making this up a little bit, but you get the general drift. Out of his bedroom window, he could see the Pacific Ocean, and out of the living room window, he could see downtown LA. That's the property. Okay, he would always tell me that was going to be his retirement. Is gone,
And they won't let him rebuild.
but this 2043 plan, if you need a car, it will be an electric car, and you can rent it for a couple hours from the county.
So you're not allowed to own it.
You don't need to. You live in a smart city. You can walk to work 15 minutes. But if you misbehave, they'll turn off your power. They'll turn off your bank account.
Reminds me of the KGB.
Your neighbors can snitch on you.
Yeah, it does. The KGB. So we need to fix Buncombe.
And we need to fix Buncombe.
So you're talking about, not recognizing Asheville. When my mom was a teenager in 1985, her and her girlfriends at 16 would go downtown and just walk downtown at night, Friday night. Now, in 2025, my husband's a big dude. He's 27 years old. He doesn't like going downtown. He carries, but hey, why? Like our crime rate is huge. I don't even like going to the mall. Like the Asheville Mall, the biggest, and you'll never hear this anywhere because it's bad for tourism. But I was a first responder for a little bit. The biggest rape kind of place in Asheville is the mall.
Seriously. It breaks my heart because at 16, 17, 18 years old, Asheville hadn't changed yet for me. It was still the same Asheville. I mean, it'd gotten a little better, I guess, And I would leave from Canton and I would come to Asheville and I would hang out and I would party and I would go shopping and then I would go home. Skip forward to 2025 and you can ask my youngin', I won't come here. I mean, I come here when I need to. I'm here for this. Like there's been probably for her entire life, she's 17 years old. I think she's been here 5 times to go to the Biltmore Estate for different things like this, events, whatever. But for the most part, I avoid Asheville, and I feel like most people do.
I mean, it's sad when your town has the nickname of Trashville.
Yeah. But this is why we need to fix Buncombe. Do you know that had the evangelicals, good Christians, come out to vote in the presidential election, there's 77 million of them across the United States that didn't vote in 2024. 77 million is what Trump got. So whoever they wanted to vote for, we have 2 million in North Carolina, and less than 40% come out to vote. And then the number goes way down when an off year or whether it's a primary. It goes way, way, way down. And I appreciate that they say it's in God's hands. I'm okay on that. That's fine. If that's what they believe, that's fine. But let me tell you a story. A dude is on a roof and there's floodwaters all around the roof, okay? And a helicopter shows up. And a guy in the helicopter is like, let me rescue you. No, God's got it. Okay. Okay, so he goes away. Boat shows up. Hey, I'm here to rescue. No, God's got it. Dude dies. Goes to heaven. He's standing before God. He says, I don't understand. Why am I here? Why did I die? God goes, I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. You got to do a little of the work. That's what we have to do. We have to do a little of the work. We need to tell people, you got to come out and vote. It is so incredibly important in 2026 that you get out and vote. We need the supermajority in the House and the Senate to offset Stein and have common sense. We need the supermajority in the House and Senate at the national level, because if you don't have that, Trump is dead in the water. So if you kind of sort of like in the direction that we're going and you see things are improving, the border's closed. We've got buses that come to Canton full of illegal immigrants.
We've got photos.
We have photos, we have bus names, we have all this stuff. We have all that information. We need the common sense to come back. We need to get back to, and North Carolina values, Western North Carolina values, awesome. One of the reasons we came here. But the schools are broken. The government's nuts. And we can fix it.
And we're not by any means bashing Christians. I mean,
we're not. No.
I'm a blood-bought believer myself, but we have pastors that will stand in the pulpit and not preach, and they want to stay away from politics. But I'm sorry, if you take a Bible into the voting booth, you cannot look down that and not vote conservative. You can't, because I, as a Christian, cannot look at Lindsay Prather, who is over here trying to push, her agenda of abortion and illegal immigration. Okay. They say, okay, Jesus was an immigrant. He never went anywhere illegally. Jesus flipped tables in the thing. He caused vandalism. That was his house to begin with. They came there. They were in the wrong. You can't look at a Bible and that and not vote conservative. And we have pastors that will not stand in the pulpit and say that.
Do you know why they won't? They're afraid the government is going to take their 501c3 away and force them to pay taxes. That's not in the Constitution. The Constitution, the founding fathers, those fun guys I was talking about earlier, those constitutionalists have either God or some reference to Christianity in every aspect of the Constitution. The Christians were supposed to be in the Constitution and in the government. The government was not supposed to be in the church. Absolutely no way should the churches have been closed during COVID, but the casinos were open.
Oh, agreed. 1,000%. COVID left a nasty taste in my mouth. And right now with Cooper getting ready to run for Senate, I am furious, not only because of storm relief, but because of COVID.
You need to hear Don Brown speak about that, running against him.
I saw.
Have you heard his speech about COVID and about his dad? He's going to take Cooper down.
He was one of the guys that watched his father die through a window.
Yeah, I lost my mama during COVID. I hadn't seen her in a year, and I blame Roy Cooper.
Yeah.
But these are things, common sense. Show me the science. Fauci said, I made it all up. I made it up. I had people chasing me. Put your mask on. Fight me.
I wish more people had been that way. I was not that way, and I'm so ashamed of myself. All right, y'all. This has been absolutely incredible. I'm so thankful that you guys sat down to talk with me.
We need to fix Buncombe.
That's true.
We do, because it's starting. I mean, I gave a speech last night. And one of the things I said was, Asheville looks pretty from a distance, but you get up close and it's like kudzu, and it's destroying anything that's actually rooted in Western North Carolina, and now it's spreading.
But if you talk to people, they're good people that just somehow, and the running joke is the reason that a lot of this has gotten as bad as it is because Republicans have jobs, and they trust, if they send their children to school, they trust that the kids are going to be okay and they're going to be taught the right things. They're not. And they trust that if I vote for X, Y, and Z, that they're going to take care of my community. It's not.
Hopefully next time we do this, you can come on our podcast.
I would love that.
Yeah.
We can definitely do that. And I agree with you. I think the conservatives have far too much trust. And I think that it's time that we start standing up for what's right. Because if we don't, we have more than just our culture to lose. We have our freedom to lose. And so it's time for people to start voting and fixing their communities.
But nobody knows that Buncombe 43 was done. Everybody I talk to, they've never heard of it. You've never heard of it, but you don't necessarily live here. I'm talking about people in the grocery store. I'm talking about people at Lowe's. I'll talk to anybody, and they're stunned.
Well, hopefully people will start listening now.
But we have to fix Buncombe. We need the first week of December is when people can apply to be a candidate. And we need good candidates. We need them for the school board. We need them for the county commissioner. We can win some of these seats back. The numbers are actually in our favor since we and I don't want to call it redistricting, is we went back to normal.
Well, hopefully people will get out and vote. People will get out and run. I'm counting on people being motivated right now. And what happened in Mecklenburg County, the recent election, really let me down. So I'm praying that hopefully if enough of us start standing up and we start talking about what we're seeing going on in our communities, hopefully things will change.
Don't be so surprised about what happened in Mecklenburg. The Attorney General for the state of Virginia is a guy who went out on Facebook saying he wants the wife and the kids to die of the competitor. Who in their right mind, even if you said it, why would you put it on social media? And he won.
Well, I have faith in y'all. I think you're going to fix Buncombe.
We got a lot of work to do.
But we got a lot of great help to do it.
Talk about the history, let's talk about